Welcome to Be in the Room, How to Stop Shrinking and Start Leading with Purpose, Episode 4, where we're going to be talking all about the performance curve. This series is all about bringing you the tools and the strategies that I use as an executive coach to leaders, to executives, to people in C-suites all across different industries. Where I work within industries such as real estate, finance, entertainment, top Fortune 500 and 100 companies. And the tools that I'm going to be bringing to you over the month of January are those exact tools and strategies that I use with these leaders in order to drive higher performance, in order to drive companies higher revenue, and in order to essentially bring human-centric leadership to people, not just people who are leading others, but people who are leaders of themselves. In other words, you don't need to be a C-suite leader or a VP or someone who has 100 people reporting to them to benefit from what's being offered in this series. What is being offered in this series are leadership tools for anyone who is looking to lead themselves better in any area of their life. The tools that I'm sharing with you today over the next few months, over the next few weeks, are tools that I've used not only to increase my own professional development, not only to increase my income, increase the fulfillment that I have in the work that I do, increase my impact, but also to increase my overall fulfillment and joy in order to increase my ability to parent better, in order to increase the satisfaction of my relationships, navigate more long lasting relationships, navigate conflict with more ease, which is something that is applied to all areas of my life. Today's tool is we're talking about the performance curve. Now, by the end of this session today, what you are going to leave here with is you are going to be able to understand what the performance curve is, recognize where you are on the performance curve because you have the ability to understand and recognize the emotional signs and behavioral signs that are attached to each of them. And you're also going to be able to identify one of the things that we're going to talk about too is how high performance can become a mask for stuckness. Okay. I'm also going to give you the coaching tools that I use with clients to move people from stuck to energized without forcing it. Now, the thing is, when I'm working with part of what I do when I work with leaders, when I'm coaching people, is I help people to give them the tools to slow down their thinking. Now, tools can come in the mode of these tools that we're talking about here. They can come in the form of me listening, asking questions. The entire point here, and when you are in these sessions, the real goal here is to slow down how you are thinking. And the reason is so that you can go faster. The reason is because our world moves so fast, and especially in the business world, we are constantly navigating ambiguity, constantly navigating changing policies, changing organizational structures, changing goals, KPIs, etc. Things are going back to back and they're moving quickly, which means that for the most part, leaders are making key decisions that could impact happiness, financials, etc., based on being on autopilot. The goal here is to take a moment, to pause, to slow down your thinking, to challenge where you are, to give yourself the exact tools and strategies that you need in order to move faster with more fulfillment. Now, for this session, it's going to be a 30-minute pause that I'm asking you to give yourself. 30 minutes to slow down how you're thinking, 30 minutes to challenge some of the ways that you are making decisions and challenge some of the ways that you are feeling so that you can remove yourself from the autopilot seat and actually start driving in the direction of what is going to bring you fulfillment, what is going to bring you purpose, and what is going to allow you to lead with higher levels of executive presence. Okay? So let's get started. The other thing you need to know about these sessions is that they are building on top of each other. So if you are in this session today, you're going to hear me talk about things in episode 4 that I've referred to in episode 1, 2, and 3. And the reason is because the tools that I'm providing are intended to build on top of each other. This isn't necessarily, yes, you can just drop into these sessions and you're going to get a lot out of it. But really and truly, what I'm looking for you to do is for you to start to build on these skills as you move forward. Because if I just drop you into midweek, You may have missed some of the foundational blocks that are required to actually use that tool with any level of efficacy to do the reflections. So that being said, if you hear me refer to a tool, if you hear me refer to a concept that was covered, just know that all the Instagram lives have been posted on my feed. You can go back and hit up that episode and you can get caught up. Now, just to get you caught up on what we've talked about so far, it's good to see people joining. Thank you so much. What we've talked about so far this week is all about emotional mastery. Now, when we talk about emotional mastery, it is, again, that leading self before we can figure out how to raise our impact and lead others. Okay. So, what we want to do is what we've already covered is on day one, we talked about communicating with clarity, navigating difficult conversations with clarity. So for that, we talked about the experience cube, otherwise known as the oh, what the fuck tool. We built on that and we talked about the importance of feelings because part of the the experience cube is understanding your feelings and how feelings are often overlooked data that are driving major decisions. So when we name the feeling, we're able to actually become more logical, rational, and strategic, which is counterintuitive to what we've been told about feelings. What you've been told about feelings is that feelings are illogical, that they are not that they are not rational. Now, feelings themselves can be illogical. Feelings themselves can be rational. However, naming a feeling, emotional literacy, that is the gateway to rational, right? So that's the differentiator here. We then overlaid that yesterday with how to, now that we have a better understanding of emotional literacy, how are emotions showing up when we are making big changes in our lives, whether that is starting with a new job, whether that's pursuing new goals, whether that's enforcing a new habit. All of these things have an emotional trigger that's associated with each stage. And when we understand those triggers, when we understand those stages, we're better able to normalize them, not shame ourselves for them, and reach for the tools that we need in order to get out. Hey, Lawrence, thanks to have you in here. All right, welcome, welcome. All right, so today we are overlaying the emotional cycle of change with the performance curve. Now, the performance curve is a tool that was initially adopted within sports to basically show people what happens when they start something new or what happens when change is introduced. Because what you need to fundamentally understand that I don't care what is on your resume when it comes to change. Everyone is going to put on their resume thrives in change, leads well with ambiguity, whatever the case is. Everyone believes that they are good with change, that change is great, that change is something that they thrive and they adapt in. And all of that can be true. However, what we need to understand is that there is a human biological survival resistance to change. That resistance to change because your brain, in order to ensure your survivability, is constantly looking for patterns. It's constantly looking for certainty. And when it has certainty, it feels safer. When it has certainty, it trusts itself more to be able to keep you alive. As soon as you introduce uncertainty because something in the pattern has changed, has shifted, your brain automatically goes into a threat mode. And in that threat mode, there are some behavioral things that show up. Now, how long that lasts differs by every single person, differs by every person, differs by change. So just because you experience resistance when there is change does not mean that you are not good at navigating change. However, acknowledge that there is some resistance, because if you constantly tell yourself the story that you're good with change, then you might be missing the subtle ways where you're not chasing change because of your brain's natural resistance to go seek it out. All right. Okay. So let's talk about the performance curve here. All right. So now here's the thing you need to know. I'm doing some things on this whiteboard. is okay. I think my connection's back. I'm going to be doing some things on the whiteboard. If you are watching this live, it's backwards. Okay. What I'm able to afterwards, I'm going to download it. I'm going to mirror it. I'm going to post it so that it's looking frontwards. But bear with me if you're on this live. You're going to see it backwards. You do have the ability, however, to go back later and you are going to see it the front way. That being said, I'm going to walk you through the whole thing. So don't worry about it. Okay. So on this whiteboard, what you're going to notice is I've got this axis here. So one in terms of performance, because again, this is talking about how does our performance get impacted based on where we are in the performance curve, right? So we have here performance, and then we have here time. Now, oftentimes, and if you think about the last time something changed in your world, okay, whether it's a change you incurred for yourself or whether someone put it on you. If it's an org change, a job change, maybe you got laid off, maybe there was a promotion, maybe there was the anticipation of change. Maybe you read an opening for a promotion that you were interested in, and that introduced the prospect of change, because even the prospect of change can trigger what we're talking about here, okay? So when we first enter change, this is what can often happen. Our stage one is called the stuck stage. Okay. Now in the stuck stage, what we are experiencing often is a level of denial. Why does this need to change? Do I really even need to do anything? Like a bit of denial and fear, because again, your brain is resisting and wants things to stay the same. So it's going to initially reject and resist that this change even needs to happen. Okay. It's going to, if the change was even put on you, you may even find yourself in an organization being angry with the change that's happening. If a new org announcement comes up and your initial reaction is, what are they doing up there? This makes no sense. Why is this even happening? They don't know what they're doing. There is a natural cling that we have as humans to the way things were. So there is a natural initial resistance to how we perceive change. So again, starting with that denial, right? So right now we're like, I don't know about this. This doesn't feel right. You might feel angry about it. You might even think like, maybe if I just leave it alone, nothing's going to happen, right? So then as you move through though, you start to enter into resistance mode, right? So in resistance mode, what we have is this performance dip where essentially you not only, now that you're starting to see like, okay, things are actually going to change, but I'm not on board. I'm not on board. I don't want it to happen yet. Now, again, this can show up if something is put in front of you. And at first, maybe you have a level of like, there could be some mixture of denial with excitement, which keeps you up here. But then your brain goes into overdrive on trying to keep you where you've been. So it starts to send you messages like, you aren't cut out for this. This isn't supposed to happen. Maybe you're not good enough for this. I don't know, a whole number of things. Like, when you think about those words like negative self-talk that a lot of people think about, this is where a lot of negative self-talk starts to show up. And not just negative self-talk, negative external talk, right? So that's why resistance, you are going to see a dip in performance, because essentially what people are doing here in this moment is starting to check out a little. Like, this is where we see people doing like the quiet quitting, right? I'm starting to check out a little because I'm not on board with the change and I don't care enough about it yet, right? So that is where we are seeing resistance. Denial going into resistance leads to a performance dip, and this is where we are stuck. Now, how do we get it? What happens when we get out of it? So let's just say some time passes. You start to take on a few more meetings. You start to have a bit more conversations. Now you start to move into this next phase, which is acceptance, right? And in acceptance, you're like, I'm still nervous about it. In acceptance, negative emotions still exist. So anxiety still exists. Uncertainty still exists. However, you are in a place now where you're just like, I get it, but I'm ready to start getting on board now. That's why this is the first stage to the working it out. So now we're in working it out mode. All right. Now we're being willing to hear a few more things. We're more willing to experiment. We're more willing to try something, right? Just to see how it goes. Again, not feeling all the way confident about it yet, but I'm willing to give it a shot just to see how it goes. Which again is putting you into that explore phase, exploring new options, exploring new opportunities, right? So this is where we are here. Now, as time, and as you can see, performance is starting to elevate with this. Let me give you a better marker. So we had a bit of a dip, we had some resistance. Now we're starting to do things and explore, and therefore performance is starting to increase, which leads us into, as we're exploring, we're getting more data that is helping to produce that, hey, maybe your brain is starting to pick up new patterns that's helping it to establish a new level of certainty, where it's starting to get a better sense of what it can predict. And when it gets a better sense of what it can predict, now you move into commitment phase, which is the first phase of what we call lighting it up. So this is lighting it up. Now, in lighting it up, you're committed to the project. You're starting to see some successes. You're starting to see the vision that's coming together. So now you're committed, you're lighting it up. And as you continue to move forward, now we're in growth. So you can see now how this performance moves across all the various phases. And you can plot out certain things in your life where you have seen this happen. Think about a new competency that you've had, something that you were learning. Think about how you felt at the beginning of that learning. Maybe it was learning to play the violin. I don't know. And think about all the emotion, how you went through this various phase in everything that you do. Think about for those people who are parents who have kids who are, as kids get older and they try new things, they have that level of like, I'm not going to be good at this. I'm not even sure, blah, 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 blah. And then you keep telling them like, keep practicing, keep practicing, keep practicing. And as they practice, they start to move along on this road, right? Now, as we become adults, this keep practicing bit gets harder and harder because the stakes get higher, which means that we are prone to sometimes stay stuck a lot longer. And what you're going to notice here too is that this performance is a solid line, time is a dotted line, which means that depending on the situation, depending on the change, depending on the stakes and the emotions that are involved, this time, how long you spend in each phase could be seconds, it could be months, and there are people who stay stuck for years. If you think about people who want to change things, but are constantly finding excuses on why it's not going to work, are constantly telling themselves that they're not good enough to take on that change, to take on that risk, who are constantly blaming other people and blaming other systems, etc., for why their reality is what it is. Those people are stuck here. And their performance is reflective of that stuckness, right? Not just their performance from a work perspective, but maybe their performance from an overall life perspective. This is where people start to give up on themselves if they stay in here too long. Now that I've explained the curve to you, I want you to just take a second and just think about for yourself where you might be on this curve right now. If you think about where you are from a life perspective, from a relationship perspective, from a work perspective, where are you seeing yourself right now? Are you stuck because you're noticing a level of dissatisfaction and unfulfillment, but you're still blaming other people for why that's happening, but you're still not exploring other opportunities? Are you in the working it out phase where maybe you've acknowledged the dissatisfaction or these negative emotions, but you're actively committed to wanting to find a way out of it? So maybe here you're starting to challenge some of those narratives. You're starting to stretch yourself into new projects, into new areas. You're showing up despite how you feel, right? Showing up despite how you feel. You feel unmotivated, you feel uncertain, but you're pushing forward anyways, where you're getting to exploring. Or are you in the lighting it up phase where everything's kind of coming to you in like unconscious competence? You're just finding it easy to get through tasks. You're finding it easy to get through your work. You're showing up in rooms where you feel confident. You're mentoring, you're coaching. You're constantly looking, you're constantly being assigned new challenges. You're taking on growth. Think about where that is for you right now. And for those people on this call who are leaders of other people, this is a really great tool to even reflect on your team. Thinking about some people on your team where maybe you're finding it hard to get a certain person up to a level of performance that you want them to be at. Think about that individual and some of the behaviors and emotions that we talked about. Where might they be on this curve that can help explain why it is that you're seeing the performance dip that you're currently seeing? Because once we're able to name it, we're able to problem solve for it. And that's the next step here. So people in this stuck phase, again, because they are currently ruled by anger, by dissatisfaction, by resistance, and if you're in this phase, this isn't necessarily the time to make big long-term goals, because those big long-term goals just seem too unattainable right now. You're essentially standing at the foot of a mountain and it seems way too tall for you to even take the first step. So if you are feeling like you're in this stuck or resistance phase, keep your goals short term. What you are looking for here, quick wins, the ability to demonstrate quicker wins, the ability to say, I don't think I'm ready for this, but I can show up for this. Like, this is what success today looks like. This is what success this week looks like. Because essentially here, what you're doing is you're trying to build that confidence in your brain to establish some new level of predictability. So keep your goals short term. And now might not be the time for you to accept feedback from other people. In this phase, people are too resistant to accept constructive feedback, because at this point they're like, I'm not trying to work on myself in that way. So again, keep your goals short term and use tools like the experience cube that we talked to figure out like what it is that you can do next, because that's going to get you into accepting. Now, when people are in accepting, this is typically where I start to see people come to me for coaching. People are still feeling a lot of the feelings of stuck, but what gets them over this line is their willingness now to explore new opportunities, the willingness now to endure something hard, the desire to start to target longer term goals to get themselves out of stuck. They want out. So accepting where I am and wanting out, this is where most people will sign up for coaching. And this is kind of the best entry point for coaching, right? Is to say, is for these people, because coaching is something that is going to challenge. It's going to provide a mirror. It's going to provide feedback. And if you are clouded by anger and excuses, it's not going to be effective. So in here, people are willing to hear feedback. They are willing to be coached, and they are willing to start to move to this exploration phase. Now, for those people who are lighting it up, these are the people who need longer term goals. They need bigger things to be able to keep them motivated and to keep them enriched. And not only that, but potentially the opportunity to mentor, to challenge, the opportunity to share some of what they've learned with other people, right? So that is where giving people longer term challenges, maybe promotions, maybe stretch projects, etc. This is where lighting it up goes. Now, here's the tricky thing about, and also coaching also comes over here as well, because, and I'm going to tell you why. So many people that I coach, because I coach high performers, because I coach high achievers, because I'm coaching people who have accomplished a lot of things and from the outside looking in appear to be lighting it up, have found themselves lighting it up performatively but internally they are stuck. Internally they are checked out because there is something in the work over here that is no longer feeling fulfilling to them, that is no longer feeding their sense of joy, their sense of passion, that is no longer giving them the type of challenge that they're looking for. So even though they're showing up at work and everyone thinks, you're lighting it up, you've got this, you're good, you're good, you're good, they're not paying attention to the signs. And we are sometimes not paying attention to the signs that we're slipping back on the performance curve. Thanks, Sean. So good. Yeah, absolutely, Sean. I was saying at the beginning of this call that this performance curve is derived from sports training. Absolutely. Okay. So just all that to say is that even when we find ourselves somewhere on this curve, it's not a permanent state. That at any given point in time, we need to be open to the fact that our performance is dynamic and that we may have minor performance dips or we may have long-lasting performance dips if we do not see the signs of where we're at. So this is why, again, so many high achievers, so many of the people that I coach, I'm not coaching them because they're not doing well, they're not performing well at work all the time. Coaching is not necessarily about remediation, but it's about helping them to understand why is it that externally I'm lighting it up here, but I feel stuck over here. What is missing? What are the strategies that I need to be looking at in order to change the way that I show up for myself, change the way I show up at work, change the way I show up for others, revisit my values in order to see what I can drive that is going to be ultimately more fulfilling to me, because I want to go back up to the energy that I felt when I was lighting it up both internally and externally. Okay? All right. So that is the performance curve. Now, again, as I mentioned, this is a really great self-assessment tool to see where you are and what it is that you might be looking for. Because if you are currently lighting it up at work, but still feeling a lot of feelings of working it out and stuck, then maybe there's something deeper, more internally that you need to be focused on and looking to change, right? Because the problem is with people who are lighting it up is that they're often ignored because everyone believes that they're good already. So they ignore the signs of asking for help. They ignore the signs of being checked out. They ignore the signs of dissatisfaction because as far as everyone else is concerned, what do you have to be dissatisfied about? You're already killing it. And if that's something that you identify with, then I encourage you to really place yourself where you are right now on this curve, even as a high performer, and start to ask yourself, what is it that the last time I felt internally lighting it up, what were some of the things that I was doing? What were some of the actions that I was driving? And what's currently missing for me right now? Because that's going to give you some strategies and a bit of a lead on what it is that you can start to explore in order to bring yourself back up on that curve. Okay? I know that's a lot for one day, but I hope that this is helpful to you, not only if you are a leader of self, but if you are a leader of others, because again, naming where someone is going to help you to give someone the right strategies to help them move forward. Because I see leaders do this all the time. They have people who are stuck and they're trying to motivate them with long-term goals and it's not working. They're trying to motivate them with coaching and it's not working. They're trying to motivate them with feedback and it's not working. Now you can kind of give people the tools to meet people where they are at so that they can go further, faster. All right, with less resistance. Okay, so that is it for today. Thank you all for joining. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about bridging the theme between like lighting it up and feeling stuck internally. What are some of the narratives that people who are lighting it up externally have that keep them stuck in here? And a lot of that has to do with this narrative that people in the lighting it up section receive is you have enough. You have enough. You've already done so much. Why do you need any more? And the guilt that pushes people back here but gets unchallenged because They don't want to seem greedy. They don't want to seem selfish because they've been told all of their lives that once you achieve your goals, you should be happy. And redefining enough is what we're going to explore tomorrow. Because if we're not willing to challenge those narratives that are keeping us stuck, then we're going to stay stuck. And there's no point in even getting to a place where we can establish a bigger vision, which is what we're going to get into next week. So next week is going to be all about creating longer term goals, creating longer term visions. But first, we need to challenge the narratives that keep us here. All right. Okay. Awesome. If you have any questions afterwards, please feel free to hit me up. Send me a note. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow for day 5 of the Be in the Room challenge. The Be in the Room live series. As I mentioned, many of these nuggets and models and tools are things that are going to be in my book as well. So if any of this is resonating with you, go ahead and comment book in the comments below, and you will get a link to pre-order my book, Be in the Room, Stop Shrinking and Start Leading with Purpose, as soon as it drops on January 20th. Okay? You can also go into Amazon and pre-order the book today. I hope to see you all tomorrow and for the remainder of January, where we're going to up your level of leadership, up your executive presence, and really change the way that we lead in 2026. Have a good day.